The 12 steps are a blueprint for a way of life for anybody and everybody. This is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other so that they may solve their common problems and help others to recover. The only requirement for membership is a desire to live the 12 steps and have a better life. There are no dues or fees. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. This group is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, and neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to carry the message of the 12 steps, stay happily and usefully whole, and to help others to achieve an understanding of the 12 steps as a way of life. We got birthdays tonight, don't we? We got a couple of them, so who's first? Who's first? Let's see. We got Howard, and then we got Miss Laura. How many years is it?
6, I think.
6?
Wow. I'm not sure. I know it's not 5, 6 or 7, but it's 6.
Hey, we got that lighter back up here?
No, it's by the cake.
All right, so Howard's got 5 years, and Kathy, and I will be giving him this cake. Okay. Well, it's Kathy's today, we're giving it to Howard. Okay, and 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Howard. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks for bringing me to the birthday cake. I don't know if this working.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really appreciate everybody in this room and Casey leading the meeting and really deciphering the 12, and it's really been helpful for me. You know, I'm really happy. I've got 5 years now, and you know, when I came into recovery, I was pretty sick physically, but mentally questionable. But you know, it's a better way of life. I think one of the most powerful things has been for me, obviously, finding the higher power is the ultimate. But you know, to be able to be in a character defect and be able to make that change, you know, when you're in it. And it's tremendous. I'm grateful for the program. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody in this meeting room. It's really been a big help. Thanks, Claudia. That's it.
All right, Howard. Right there, brother. All right, we got another one for Laurel, and the girls are going to be giving her cake, as she would term it. So the gals will be giving the cake up.
The women's.
Whoa, man. One, a 2, and a 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Laurel. Happy birthday to you. Be coming back. Yeah, there you go, girl.
Hi, I'm Laura.
Hi, Laurel.
I am a recovering alcoholic. Okay. So my birthday was actually May 10th, and an interesting thing happened this year. I forgot completely about I didn't even register until after. And I went, oh wait. And the only reason I find that significant is because in my first few years of sobriety, especially that first year, I clung on to every minute of physical sobriety. I was the life preserver gal, I think, you know, in terms of just every day I had to know I was dying if I didn't have a program of recovery. Now that hasn't changed, but I think that my emotional sobriety is leaps and bounds. I feel so sound of mind on so many days that when I'm out of sync with the world, it actually feels like what happened. And that is a testament to this program of recovery, because I've hooked up with a lot of people that I used to know years ago recently, and I remember how dysfunctional I was by being around. I just remember what my mindset was, and I was just like, who is that person? You know? It's like I kind of touched on it, but I can't actually remember those feelings. it's like I remember that being that way, but I don't remember what it felt like to be that way. And that is huge to me, that I can't get re-traumatized even by the idea of it. You, of course, sir, you hadn't shown up, and you don't continue to show up, and then this is really possible. I don't know, God might have made it happen for me, but I know that my fourth AA meeting in life was the Galen Freed with this man in the front of the room, and that's what I grasped onto, is what you had to say. So I'm eternally grateful to you as the human being who shows up, but, you know, this is my best friend in the world up here too, and I love him dearly. Thank you, Maria, for showing up this week, and I just maybe that was what I was waiting for, was for you to come back and from your trip and be here for me. I love you a lot, and it's great to be working with you. And Jeannie, I'm getting to know you more and more, and I love you already. So you're a sweetie pie, Kathy. Thank you so much. And it's lovely having you all here week after week, but I really like having women, and that's also you. I think that's it. Okay.
Happy birthday, man. Well done. All right. Any other cakes that didn't speak up earlier? All right. Well, if you have a cake, a birthday coming up, you want to let Kathy know. Make sure we got a cake here for you. All right. So, who would like to read the promises, and we'll do a little meditation after that. Okay, Maria.
The promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, and we wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? I think no. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Thank you. All right. All right, you want to hit that back light there for us, please? Or the front light here, actually. The front light. Leave the back one on. Because that way we do it. Yeah, leave the front one off, back one on. If that's the one that works out best. Yeah, it kind of works that way. It kind of sets a mood on the whole thing. All right. Everybody up front anyway. Get yourself in a comfortable position. Uncross your legs. Get yourself grounded to the floor. This is meditation time. Most of you have been here, so you know what to do. Get yourself in a position and then become aware in this moment of your soul being present in this moment and your body taking a backseat. So through desire, call your soul forward in this moment. And as you begin to call your soul forward, feel that connection to your source, to your creator, to creation, and your relationship to your creator, to the creator. And you start to realize you're going to enter that realm of ecstasy in that your mind and God's mind are going to become one by desire. As soon as you begin to call forth that soul, you know that you are now in the fourth dimension. You're not limited to the three-dimensional world anymore. You can observe it, but you feel apart from it now as opposed to captured by it. And that's that freedom. And we're always looking for it. You gain perspective. Step 11 says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact of God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Is that beginning of improving our conscious contact. So that's something that is of course, the beginning of a lifetime process. Is that we're, improving that conscious contact, and that's what meditation does for us. It gets us grounded back to that place. Back to separate ourselves from our body into the soul where we know we're okay. And that when we're one with God, we're even better. And in the soul realm, no harm can come to us, no temptation in this realm that we're going into now. And we know we're going in to charge up. Every time we go into meditation, it's that recentering, that regrounding. It's that balancing mechanism. It's that which separates left from right, from up from down, and that in between, where zero stillness lies. So we can be at rest for a moment. Maybe you get caught up during the day. Because you do this in the morning, or you do this on Wednesdays, or whenever it is you do this, there'll come a time where if you get caught up, you can realize you can enter into this mode at any time. It's not contingent upon this workshop or set of music or situation. These are all qualities that are good to have in the beginning to help to fortify and get into that state of quiet, So there are things initially that are worth having. And so let these things take you now, knowing that you're in a room, not by yourself anymore, but you're connected to souls that are desiring the same thing, which is to have that soul-to-soul communion with creation, with their creator, which represents your creator, knowing that we only have one creator, and that light of that creator centers each and every one of us, and that nobody has more of creation in them than anybody else. We all have the equal measure. We have all that God has to give to us. Just imagine and think for a second how many times we believe we're getting the short end of the stick, or God's treating others better and not us, or God gave these more, or any kind of idea should be just thrown aside in this realm to know the truth. That we're all centered by the light of God. We all have access to omniscient mind if we choose to access that mind. We all have access to omnipotence, to that power, and we all have access to omnipresence. It's a question of being aware of that omnipresence, the omniscience, and the omnipotence. And in meditation, we enter into full awareness of those truths, of the omnipresence of God. He's everywhere all the time. God is within everything and outside of everything. God is the boundaries to all things. And also as we begin to experience the presence of God in our minds and in our souls, as we desire to connect to that source, that light center in us, we start to know new things. We start to think on a level we could never think of before, because we begin to think with the mind of God. Therefore, what God knows, we now know, to the extent in which we are aware of God in this moment. As we're all seeking to become fully aware of God in this moment and nothing else, we enter into that truly highest of all realms, where we actually become omnipotent by our alignment in this moment. And in that omnipotence, meaning that we have now the power to heal ourselves. We now have the power and align ourselves with the power to quiet down the insides, to be revealed the truth for our lives, to remove questioning. Sometimes this three-dimensional world will fool you. It'll pull you back, make you think it's real, make you think that pain and these fears and these struggles are real. Most of them are just an illusion. But it's in meditation that we get that truth. We're no longer deluded or caught up in thinking that the three-dimensional world will ever fill up our insides. This is truly a fourth-dimensional concept. And thus we work from the inside out, not from the outside in meditation. And being aware of working from the inside out, we call forth our souls from the inside. And we call it out into this moment. And if you ask, you shall receive. If you knock, it shall open. These are truths in regards to the metaphysical. So in asking to be one with God, you are one with God. Every desire is immediately fulfilled. Before you even asked it, it was there for you. You only had to ask. And in this moment, we are asking to be in that soul-to-soul communion with our Creator, to feel the ecstasy of God's thinking, God's presence, and God's knowing within us, and to let that ecstatic state be a part of our state, being familiar with that feeling of exceedingly content and fulfilled. So in this moment, through desire, all these words that we just heard become truths, no longer words, which transform them into energy. The energy now that we will brew on, that we will desire to find stillness in, and unwind our thinking to that zero stillness state, where we're neither left or right, but we're in between. We're neither withdrawn or expressive. We are at the balancing point. We are at rest. We all need rest from our three-dimensional body. In meditation, this is where we can find rest, balance, truth, love, those qualities that make purpose in our life, those qualities that we strive for, that truly are the inspiration for life. So in this moment, as you become one with your Creator, let your desire be for you to be in the rhythm of love and to be comfortable in that rhythm of love. Learning each day and each moment to love ourselves ever more until we experience the ultimate love for ourselves that God would have us experience. And that's the goal in this moment, is to experience the ultimate love for ourselves so that we can truly give that to others. And let that be your desiring energy in this moment, is to be aware of that state of love, of God's love for us, that we can have for ourselves in this moment as we are one with God. So we no longer see ourselves as separate and apart, but we return to the source and realize we are all extensions of the one. In meditation, we return to the one. We are no longer divided. We separate from duality. We enter into the single eye. And just desire to connect to those truths in this moment. And as you connect to those truths, you should feel yourself quieting down. And feel rest come upon you. And let the mechanism slow down to zero stillness. And if we're trying to learn how to love ourselves, we can recognize those who we have cared deeply for and we have expressed unconditional love to align ourselves with the rhythm of that love that we need to mirror back on ourselves in this moment by desire. Can you mirror the love you have for others to yourself in this moment? Being at stillness, being at one, separate from duality. Remembering that balance, truth, love, and light are all qualities which we can know if we so desire in this moment. Balance, truth, love, light, and rhythm. It's in zero stillness that we become the fulcrum for all these qualities. Be thy own fulcrum in this moment as you are one with creation, as you are one with Creator. Be the fulcrum of your own light. Be the fulcrum of your own love. So not be an extension, but be the source. Feel your right to be connected to the source of God centering you, so that you're in a God state in this moment. And embrace that state, knowing it is your right. Nobody can take this from you, and nobody can give this to you. All you have to do is desire, and it shall stand before you. If there's any pattern throughout the day you need to score, it's any inharmonious interchange that's happening, it's been happening, or happened today, let it all be corrected in this moment. as your rhythms are God's rhythms, and God's rhythms are your rhythms in this moment by desire. Let yourself be reattuned to that rhythm of God's light centering you. Disregard that three-dimensional light. Let it have its place. But know the truth, that it is your mind and the light of your mind and the light of God in your mind that is the source of who you are, the source of everything you shall create, and the source of everything you desire or wanted in your life is centering your soul in this moment. Let it be repatterned to the balance, the rhythm, the truth, and the light of God's love. All the cells of your body, feel them coming into harmony. Be aware of the light of the cells of your body coming into harmony with God's rhythm, responding miraculously to the light of God, centering that you access in this moment by desire. And now be still in that light, in that healing light. Let all things be settled inside you now. Let it be settled in the light of God centering you. The light of God that you so desire has timelessly, wordlessly healed you and brought you back into your truth, your wholeness, in your spirit and in your soul is where your wholeness must lie. The centering love is for the light of your own mind and your own heart. And you are worth loving today. So give yourself that love through the grace of God in this moment. And know what the healing light of love is like to engage with. Be familiar with this energy. Let this energy be a part of you. Learn how to project it to others as you project it to yourself. Know your right to embrace as much of this light as it takes to fill you up, to make you whole, to bring you to balance, for you to know love, and for you to be in rhythm in this moment. Desire to connect to that centering light now, connecting to you. It is your soul. See the light of your own soul in the image of your own mind. Whatever that light is, do not give it form, let it be light. Whatever light you see, let it be beyond any sensed light. Let it be that still light. That still light of God's light, which is beyond the sense ranging. But it's there all the time, ever present, ever on, ever omnipotent. That is your light and God's light becoming one. See the two lights of your light and God's light become one. See it in the depths of your mind as you heal in the light of God, as you so desire to heal in the light of your own self, as God bears witness to your oneness. The glory of God's light descends upon us. God's light is all around us. God's light shines through us. God's light encompasses us. We are all dissolved in God's light. It is in this moment that God's light and your light have become one. Again, I say, be immersed in your own light as it is one with creation and your Creator. And as you become ever more familiar with God's light, centering you, knowing God's light now, no longer is unfamiliar, but it has become very familiar to you. You are comfortable in God's light. And here we say, be thou me, so that I would never ever be myself alone again. And so it is. And so it is. Know your truth. Do not depend on anyone else for the awareness of the light centering you. Become aware of yourself. As you become aware of so many things that no longer block you, that no longer stand in your way, that you've given to God, and therefore you've become free by desiring God's light and being willing to be rid of selfish self, your trauma, and your ego. It is time to feel healed in the light of God that is centering you, that you become oh so familiar with, that you can now say, of myself I'm nothing. The Father doeth the works inside me, for God and I are one. And now know your oneness, and let that heal you. And as it begins to heal you and you connect to that healing, let it be projected to those you care about, to everybody you know and everybody you've ever seen. Let the light of God project from you to them, timelessly, wordlessly, omnisciently, and omnipotently. See God's light in the eyes of everyone you love. See the reflective light of God in their eyes, that you can see with your soul this moment. All right, come on back. There's almost 2 loops, huh, Clyde? Oh. How long do those loops go?
13 minutes.
Really? So you want 26 minutes there? No way. Could not have been
Oh, no, wait,
26
no,
minutes.
it's 9.
Doesn't matter.
9
Song
minutes.
is- So there's 20-minute session there?
40 something.
Yeah, 3. No, it's only 8:30. All right, anyway, moving on. Moving on. All right, here we go. We are on step 2. Let's get your 12 and 12s out. We're going to look at step 2, and this is all about coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanctity. Sanctity behind the soundness of mind. Soundness of mind defined as not you. All right, so we are on step 2. Let's get a book here. Don't have me a book with you. Well, got me a book there with you, please. Jojo. Thank you very much. Okie dokie pokey. Pokey pokies. We're on step 2, and I believe, let's see, where did we get to last week? We are on page 29. Last paragraph. We talked last week about the drifter and about how difficult that is and how any one of us could be that at any given time. There's 4 plights when it comes to faith and coming to believe in a power greater than yourself. One of them is indifference. The other one's self-sufficiency. Prejudice and defiance are the 4 blocks that keep us. These are our plights as we walk through this coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves. So we have these experiences where we really have that faith, we have that connected moment, and then all of a sudden we get indifferent about something, and all of a sudden we depart from that connection because we now have the power for our lives through that indifference. Defiance, obviously, is another one. Intellectual self-sufficiency, and these are the things that come along. So we're going to read a little bit now about intellectual self-sufficiency. I hope you've had some opportunity to see about that lost or rejected faith character when that character pops up and what it looks like in you, not somebody else. Again, we're talking about the savage character at the beginning of the step, and it doesn't matter what savage you were when you got here 5 minutes ago. Well, if it was 5 minutes ago, we can talk about that, but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that's just not relevant anymore. We're talking about today's life. We're talking always about application for today's life, how we apply these principles in our lives today, or how does trauma affect me today, how does my ego affect me today, or how does self operate today. These are the things that we're looking at always in today's life. So when we're reading, I'm going to read for my life today, not for yesterday's, but today. So I'm not going to think back to yesterday's. When I looked at step 2, I'm going to think from today's. I'm going to desire to be in today's moment from step 2 in this particular paragraph. Okay, who would like to start off reading there? Unless there's any questions from last week or anything anybody wants to talk about from last week.
Any questions?
Yeah, Joe. Go ahead.
Happy birthday, Lord.
And our 5-year cake today, baby.
Happy birthday, Howard.
Very cool.
You know, it's funny you started off with that line. I guess it always gets funny. Wow. The meditation. You know, I find that meditation takes me to the edge of. It's like the edge of carnal knowledge. Like when I came in here, I know how to 4, 5, 6. I know how to make $1 out of 15 cents. I know how to do things on the streets, make money, and you know, and things that ways I was raised. The people I looked up to, even though I graduated from high school, but the things that were pulling me and what I was attracted to was the flash. And so giving drugs and alcohol coming from the trauma, a lot of carnal knowledge is in here. And meditation to me, it takes you to the edge of carnal knowledge and also the edge of religion. Because in meditation, it's no religion. We're not talking about Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, any of that. This takes you to the edge of that. You can come in here with that, but you have to set that aside. And what I noticed was, what I noticed, the indifference that you were talking about, because it's not that something is missing, but I have to stay open-minded. And when I'm meditating for that light of God, I got to take that farther. That means I got to want that to work for the world outside there. And when people meditate, are they really meditating and praying for other people? I mean, because how do you do that? Since this is all new, and from here on, it's just going to be fresh. It ain't going to be new. It's going to stay fresh. It's going to be fresh, stay fresh. How do you do it? Because I saw the indifference. You know, that I don't want the light just to hit me. I want the rays to be able for everybody else out there in society. And if anybody's meditating, how do you really know if that's really your thing? Because if I sit here and just itself, okay, put that light on me, that would go cool. But no, it's got to be big. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be bigger than that. Because I came in here with that. So how do you, the ultimate goal is for everybody out there. And you know, how do you recognize, like you said, the indifference when you was reading and stuff, I sensed that in the meditation. And, you know, it just is on the spiritual level, it came as I guess just like some information that's passed by. But how do you tap into that? You know,
it's like you talk about doing it with yourself, and then you're going to learn how to do it with others. Your question, I believe, is how do I project that light that I'm projecting into myself and other people? Is that your question?
And also, using the 12 steps, like you said, in the book, the indifference and defiance, that, when I realize that's me, and it tries to tell me, well, go in, get over there, and I don't listen to that, but I recognize that it's difference in the meditation. So that was my question.
Mm-hmm. You say I recognize the indifference in the meditation, is that what you're
And
saying?
indifference trying to play a part in me meditating.
In meditating, yeah.
Right here, right now.
Yeah, yeah, you can't, you know, the question is a little bit nebulous, so I don't know what it is you're necessarily really looking for in terms of answer, but the way you first came out was, how do I project that into others? By recognizing it in yourself, is what you're starting at, and then you're going to be able to see it in others. You're going to project it to others because you feel so good in you. As it feels better in you, it'll feel better if you give to others, right? Have you been around someone, you hear something going on in their life, don't you want, doesn't a part of you that wants it to be better? When that part comes up, that light inside you will start to see that light and maybe go from that meditation to projecting light into them right in the moment they're in. Light is not this. This is not light because this is inconsistent.
Right.
This light goes on and off. The light we're talking about is not necessarily looked at in lumens, but it needs to be looked at as a light that never disconnects. It's an eternal light. The two things you're talking about are philosophy, is what you're referring to. You're describing somewhat of philosophy. So I got this carnal knowledge. So you're using a word like, that's logic. If you have talking about, they got a logical mind that grew up on the street this way, saw these things this way, and so from what I saw in life, I used that logical mind to get the things that I wanted. But then there's another element, and that's that ethics. What are your ethics? Well, your ethics today are different than they were 10 years ago, right? So what was right and wrong for you 10 years ago is completely different today. What's right and wrong for you, just based on recovery in itself, they would be different. So your ethics are endless. Logic is just like these principles. They're essential truths where all truths come from. A logic is 1 + 1 is 2. That's a logical statement. Anybody who says that statement is going to be correct in that statement because you can't argue with it. That's just logic. There's no arguing. Ethics is 2 parts of philosophy. Philosophy is 2 parts. And this is what makes an individual. Now you're going to take your logic and you're going to take your ethics, and that's where you're going to go with. That's what you have lived with. And now what 12 Steps have done is they've opened up your ethical realm. And they've even also incorporated some new logic, which are derived from spiritual principles that have proven themselves to give these results. So your logic has changed and your ethics are changing, and that's an ever-changing process in ethics. Logic will always remain the same. You can gain, information is infinite. You can keep gaining more logic and more logic and more logic. That's just going to be, but that's all it is. It's just logic. It's not the essence of anything. Ethics is going to be the essence of who are you, what makes you your decision. Those are 2 parts of philosophy.
So I was raised to know right from wrong, but I choose not to.
Well, you chose not to, yeah.
I chose not to.
Yeah.
So.
Or did you? Sometimes we don't feel like we had a choice. What you're learning today is you did have a choice.
Well, my point was that I was taught from my mother.
Right. So, yeah, all you mean is giving some insights about how to live, right? Some ethics, exactly. And those are the things that you shaped your whole life around. That's what you're talking about now. So in meditation, you're getting into the philosophical realm, okay? That's all. So philosophically, how do I know what other people? It doesn't have anything to do with other people. It has to do with you. Philosophically, you can do what you can do for you, your light, your meditation, and what others do is none of our business, right? But how you project light to others is based on the more you light you project to yourself, the more you project to others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just looking at the concept of meditation, period. If I'm spiritual as well as everybody else, I'm not saying I'm concerned about it, but how do I know if I'm making that connection? Isn't that the ultimate goal of meditation? Can't be just for me.
Yeah, there isn't no way. There's treasure troves of information of how to do it, like it talks about in Step 11. Only you can know.
Yeah, I don't want that trip.
No one can give you this. No one can take it from you. The only one can know is you in the moment you're in. And if the moment you're in, you're feeling exceedingly content and fulfilled, you tap into something other than yourself.
And that's why I asked that question, because I noticed, I noticed my focus where I was at.
It'll become stronger and clearer. It slows down. That's what happens in that realm. Everything slows down. You're getting parts now is what started to slow down. Good for you. It's good stuff. All right, somebody else? Okay, who would like to read 29, last paragraph there? Let's go on to that one.
What does nebulous mean?
Was what? Nebulous? Not clear. Foggy. Vague. That make sense? Nebulous.
We have dictionaries in the back.
He knows what a dictionary is. Just ask what a nebulous means, right? Nebulous just means, you know what I mean? Or, no, it's a little nebulous to me. It's not quite clear. I don't know where I'm going.
No, I don't use that in my daily
Yeah, it's not too.
I don't know too many people who do, but.
Wait a minute, it might just incorporate now, because you just recorded what the word was. Now tomorrow you may walk, I'm a little nebulous about this whole thing right now. Keyword,
I won't be doing it.
tomorrow's word for the day.
What?
Yeah, and man, you seem a little nebulous right now.
Keep coming back, they won't keep you sober.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, you are.
Now we come to another kind of problem, the intellectually self-sufficient man or woman. To these, many AAs can say, yes, we in life, we are far too smart for our own good. We'd love to have people call us precocious. We used our education to blow ourselves up to the fire from balloons, but we were careful to hide this from others. Secretly, we thought we could float above the rest of the folks at a great part alone. Scientific progress told us there was nothing man couldn't do. Knowledge was all powerful. Intellect could conquer nature. Since we're brighter than most folks, or so we thought, this victory would be ours for thinking. The God of intellect displaced the God of our fathers. But again, John Barleycorn had other ideas. I had been so hastily in a walk to the normal time user. I saw that I had to reconsider or die. I found many in AA who once thought of idea. They helped me get down to my right size. By their example, showed me that humility and intellect can be compatible, provided I face humility first. When I began to do that, I received the gift of faith, a faith which works. This faith is for you too.
Want to share that?
I was actually going through this today, and I didn't know why I was in a bad mood, and it's kind of funny because I find myself meditating on my way to the office because I slowed down and I decided that I, can save on gas. I just slow down and take it easy and have to clean it anyway. I look at nature around me and I come down the 14 and I see that beautiful hillside spread before me. And then I got in the office and I was just in a foul mood. And a couple of homeowners called me and I decided they were just stupid. What they were asking for was stupid. And did they know any better? And how come there's so many idiots? And I was everything here. I was belligerent. I mean, I was just like, I was smarter than so many people in the world, in the universe in that moment. It wasn't just those two people. It was like everybody I was smarter than. You know what I'm saying? When I'm proclaiming that, that's really what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I'm smarter than everybody in that moment. Mm-hmm. And I heard that, and I was talking to a coworker, and I said, I'm going to work on being in a better mood, and I'm not going to talk anymore until I am. Because I realized that I was just feeling all this negativity, And that was really it, that we consider a diet. What I was talking about earlier. The emotional sobriety has to be first and foremost. If I'm in a bad mood, I got to quiet it, and I got to get it. I can't just go with it, And that seems to be the indication of what happens is that I don't know what the bad mood is about. All I know is intellectual self-sufficiency was first and foremost, right along with it. That's that.
It's amazing how a bad mood can spurn intellectual self-sufficiency, which is what I'm hearing Laurel talk about right now. Is that once I got into a bad mood, my intellect came in to validate the bad mood. Now I started to use my intelligence to justify my bad mood or perpetuate it. I'm actually letting the bad mood dictate my thinking rather than my thinking dictate my mood. And then it changed when Laurel said, and I reevaluated, I'm not going to say anything until I can get to a spot where my actual thinking is dictating my mood rather than my mood is dictating my thinking. And, we're at the mercy because emotions are transcendental. Emotions are just the byproduct of the thoughts that we had, so they're not real. Emotions are just an indicator of what's been going on inside of us. There's many people say, I feel like killing someone. The next day, are you going to kill that dude again today? No, I don't feel like killing him now. What happened? I thought you were so sure you were going to kill him yesterday. How can it change so dramatically? Are you going to kill yourself today? No, I'm better today. Everything's fine. I'm going to the movies. Something changes. But wait a minute, you were going to do something wrong. Is it so desperate? Is it critical? Are you going to break up? Is it going to be a divorce? Are you going to quit the job? All those dramatic, erratic emotions that we go through are a byproduct of not being able to understand what's going on inside of us. And thus, what's going on inside of us, those thoughts produce ideas that we don't want to have in our life. Could be fear, could be isolation, could be loneliness. I'm going to be alone. I'm not going to be with anybody. Oh, things are going to fall apart. Nothing's going to go right. Oh my God, it's going to go to hell in a handbasket. These are thoughts. There's going to be a feeling that's going to come from those thoughts. Is what we learn in recovery. Our feelings are just a byproduct of what we've been thinking for that day. And most of us, when we get here, is what we've been feeling and thinking for the last 3 to 6 months. We're just not feeling today because we keep suppressing everything down. We keep pushing off dealing with emotions and troubles and strife because we don't want to have any kind of suffering. The idea that we are suffering, again, is backed by our thinking, backed by our mind. And that's what we're starting to learn about. Why would I do that? I'm actually using my intellect to validate where I'm at, and I'm in a bad space. And you can understand, or I can almost I'm almost more harm to myself than I am good. I'm almost my own worst enemy, if you will, for a lack of a better term, because I am now using my intellect to keep myself in a bad mood, because now I'm going to show you how messed up people are, and I'm going to describe how messed up they are, and I'm going to make a list of all the things that are going wrong in this life, and just to validate why I'm so pissed right now. You know I shouldn't be this way, but and I'm going to go this list. So I'm conflicted because I know I shouldn't be this way, but I'm still in a bad place. And now I don't realize when my life becomes important to me, I realize I just threw my life away with one thought. One thought turned to another thought, another thought. How many thoughts before I lose control? How many thoughts go on before I don't even have the choice of what the next thought's going to be? I'm at the mercy of the next thought. And thus, I'm at the mercy of that negative feeling that's going to correspond with that kind of thinking. So as I'm starting to recognize this intellectual self-sufficiency, he's telling me, do I get in this idea? This is a great line. The God of intellect displaced the God of our fathers. That means we lost the God of faith and the God that we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the cure, and what's been taking place is the God of intellect. And if I'm smarter than you and I think harder than you, then I can get a better deal on you, then I can conquer, and that's why I'm a better person because I got a better end of the deal. If I get if I get 70 and you get 30, even though it's supposed to be a 50-50 deal, there's some idea that you're benefiting. And it just couldn't work in a world of balance. It just can't work that way. There will be some deals that might be better than others, but the reality of it is you never want to push a 70-30 margin. The world we're trying to live in today, which we refer to step 4 when we talk about a true partnership with another human being, is partnership, 50-50. We're looking for equality of exchange of goods and service. That's what we're looking for anywhere we go, because that's rhythm. Anytime there's an imbalance, that balance is going to be corrected by the universe you live in. Check it out when basically, like I said, in our orbit of Earth in itself, how balanced it actually is. So when you look at those things in life, there's no imbalance. You can try an imbalance, and thus how we end up here. If you be an alcoholic and a drug addict, how did you end up here? By getting so imbalanced of the inappropriately using drugs and alcohol in ratio to sobriety. So now as you're starting to do that, you recognize, I'm an alcoholic. Well, you become imbalanced. You are in a state of imbalance, and now your life is chaotic because of the imbalance. You're a victim of erratic emotions, again, because you suppressed emotions rather than dealing with them. You're imbalanced. So these are the kinds of things that we're dealing with. And these are the kinds of things that my mind will tell me, I don't have to listen to this, or I don't have to do those kinds of things. It'll start to become the authority for my life, and it turns into a defiant mind, then it turns into a self-sufficient mind, and then it turns into a prejudiced mind, and all of the characters start to come. As we talked about, for me, the concern is, when I act in one of the flaws of either self, ego, or trauma, any one of those characters, or alcoholism or addiction, I act in all of them. I don't just get a piece, I get the whole pie. That's why we do it, because we think we're only going to touch a little anger, a little lust, a little greed, a little envy, a little of the sloth, a little gluttony, all those of the 7 deadly sins, just a little bit, but you don't. You get the whole whammy, because only the old character can live like that. In the grace of God, you can't live that way. In recovery, that wouldn't be possible. Imbalance is not possible in a recovered state. That's where you start always bearing in mind when we talk about recovery, which is talked about, like I worked the steps and now I got the white picket fence and everything's okay. That's recovery. Now the disease is being treated. Now trauma is being treated. Ego is being treated. And self is being treated. But if you're not in recovery, then without treatment, stone cold sober, I can be a person that's going to regress. I'm going to regress into that barbaric state, as it's talking about here. This is very similar to the savage state they talk about in the very first paragraph of step 2. On page 25 there, the belligerent one. It says that this is a belligerent. So intellectual self-sufficiency seems to have a lot of parallel to belligerence. And that's what I say. Intellect is fine provided you place humility first. Humility is, I don't want to use my mind to hurt anybody. I don't want to use my mind to find fault with the world I live in. Shouldn't I be the one using that sharp mind that I have to find the good stuff? Wouldn't that be true intelligence as opposed to being, watch how wrong you are, watch how negative this is, watch how much fault I can find? That's not a sign of intelligence, that's a sign of ignorance. Sign of intelligence is to find the good things, right? Sign of intelligence is to see the good in all things. That's got to be a sign of intelligence, and it's a sign of humility. So I start to recognize what humility is and what the contrast to it is in relation to my intellect. I hope that helps to understand a little bit there. Somebody else on that? Want to talk a little bit about that?
Hi, I'm Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
So, you know, from an Al-Anon's point of view, so I turn it on. So from an Al-Anon point of view, I sort of hear a little bit of something I heard about being smug, arrogant, self-righteousness. And, you know, when you realize something isn't working and where along the way I feel like, you know, I was kind of in control and keep everything together until my life kind of ended in chaos, it kind of pulls you back to step one and into humility. And so, you know, even though we're in step two here, I see how this paragraph for me leads me back to humility and that we're all here together trying to figure out how to do this and getting back to understanding step one and working the rest of the steps. Thank you.
Okay, good. Somebody else?
Yeah. Hey,
David.
Yeah, I find, you know, last week when we were going over this, you know, it was the first time really that I identified with some of these descriptions, and I tend to get belligerent, you know, and defiant. I don't need anybody, and I'm not getting what I want anyway, and all this stuff, and I'm on my own and all this stuff, and I came to realize that it was all based on one of those two fears. One of those two fears, if I don't recognize it, what it is, that's when I start manifesting, start acting out.
Absolutely.
Start being belligerent or whatever, and it's all on a fear-based.
I'm not going to get what I want, or I'm going to lose what I already possess. There's only two fears in life. That's what you're talking about. It's great insight. David's talking about is when I feel fear, if I don't treat that fear or tend to that fear, I'm going to trip right up into some defects. I'm going to trip right up into some belligerent intellectual self-sufficiency and some defiance, maybe some prejudice, and all of a sudden God's out the picture because fear's taken over. You got to remember, fear is just trying to find its place too, as much as recovery is, as much as your soul light of your soul is trying to find its place and its position. So fear wants to be alive just as much as the light of your soul wants to be alive, but it doesn't have the strength. See, love it always conquers fear. Fear cannot exist in the presence of love. So when we're in a loving state, fear can no longer be there anymore. Loving state is what we get into when we feel the presence of our Creator, which is step two, saying we can't believe that a power greater ourselves restores to sanity. Sanity being soundness of mind. Also, sanity have to be a loving state. When I feel the presence of God, I don't feel aggressive. I feel really kind. I seem to feel really kind to people, and things don't bother me like they might bother me in self, and when I resort back to the intellect of self. And as we're looking at here, the correlation between these two paragraphs here on 26 of this belligerent state, it says, we can be described as 25, second paragraph says, let's look at the case of the one who says he won't believe, the belligerent one. And now we're looking at the character that's intellectual self-sufficiency. It's almost like the character who won't believe. His whole philosophy in which he is glorified is threatened. It's bad enough. And so he says he does cherish that the man risen from so majestically from a single cell in the primordial ooze is the spearhead of evolution, therefore only God that his universe knows. Then he goes on to say here, scientific progress told us there was nothing man couldn't conquer. Knowledge was all powerful. Intellect could conquer nature. Since we were brighter than most folks, so we thought, suppose the victory would be ours for the thinking. Now let's see how quickly, in this mode, like Dave was talking about, I got a fear going on. Now I'm back to intellectual self-sufficiency. Let's see how much it parallels with self. 37, first paragraph. Oh, I'm sorry, second paragraph for this damn print is. Look, forget these. They just throw these new books away. It's like someone making a mistake. It's only one sentence. Go ahead. Yeah, second paragraph.
Therefore, we who are
should his own.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, because on the regular print, the older print,
Yeah.
you must have a newer print too. Go ahead.
Right, should his own image in the mirror be too awful to contemplate, and it usually is, he might first take a look at the results normal people are getting from self-sufficiency.
Okay, stop everything, because now we're looking at science. We thought was probably most folks spoils the victories with ours for the thinking. So it sounds the secret we felt scientific progress told us there was nothing man couldn't do. We're looking at that context. We're looking at the savage guy. It says, I'm the spirit of evolution, therefore the only God my universe knows. Now I'm science, knowledge is all powerful, and now I'm entering into this state. How quick do you go from there to here? Go ahead, David, finish that up.
I'm sorry, who was I?
It says, you're everywhere.
Everywhere he sees people filled with anger and fear, society breaking up into warring fragments. Each fragment says to the others, we are right and you are wrong.
So that tells me anytime I'm sitting in life and I'm in a state of recovery, trying to enter into a state of recovery, and I say I'm right, you're wrong, I am being self-sufficient. I'm able now to recognize I am a self-will. Because why am I right and you're wrong? What happened to God in that quotient? You know, Klondike and I were talking today about someone in his family doing something wrong, but just because they're wrong don't make you right. Doesn't mean you now have a right to be, aggressive with them or bad to them. You got to pull back. You got to observe. You got to take note until they get to that line. But in terms of that, I got to remember, just because you're wrong doesn't mean I'm right. So, but when I get in a mode in my mentality and I say I'm right, you're wrong, I know I have entered into self-will. We always want to look at what self-will looks like. I want to build an awareness of what self-will looks like. So when I fall into it, I've got a chance to get back to God. So we're always creating that awareness of what self-will looks like. Go ahead and finish that up.
Every such pressure group, if it is strong enough, self-righteously imposes its will upon the rest. And everywhere the same thing is being done on an individual basis. The sum of all this mighty effort is less peace and less brotherhood than before. The philosophy of self-sufficiency is not paying off. Plainly enough, it is a bone-crushing juggernaut whose final achievement is ruin.
So that cannot be very intellectually smart to live that way, right? It's telling me this final achievement is ruin. It's telling me that in I live this way. Casey, if you ever live in the manner where you're right and others are wrong, you're either doing it on a pressure group, on a global level, or you're doing it on an individual basis. The bottom line is none of this is any good. The bone-crushing juggernaut whose final achievement is ruin. So my intellectual self-sufficiency isn't working. We're running a juggernaut is a hell of a thing. You know, this thing they call the bone-crushing juggernaut. Juggernaut is going to go on to actually, they're going to put a juggernaut in there again. So let's take a look at what juggernaut is. Read the next paragraph. There. Juggernaut. So we're looking at intellectual sufficiency. We're seeing it as a juggernaut. Go ahead. Therefore,
we who are alcoholics consider ourselves fortunate indeed. Each of us has had his own near fatal encounter with the juggernaut of self-will. And enough under its
and have suffered.
has suffered enough under its weight to be willing to look for something better. So it is by circumstance rather than by any virtue that we have been driven to AA, have admitted defeat, have acquired the rudiments of faith, and now want to make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to a higher power.
So the minute I won't believe is that I'm going to enter into intellectual self-sufficiency. Once I put those two together, I'm now going to become a circumstantial person rather than a virtuous person, and we know where that takes all of us. As soon as I enter circumstance rather than virtue, I'm now the guy that learns by knocking my head against the wall. The only time I change is when I got my back against the wall and there's no other options. So I never really change, I only comply, and that's when I start to comply to life. And of course, that's a miserable existence. So we see the escalation of entering in. Let's go back to step 2, page 29, last paragraph. We're going to be on 30, first paragraph there in our next session. So that just give you a little, helps me to understand how I connect these dots in the building of a character. First I'm in, don't be a belligerent one that says it won't believe. And then it takes me a little further and says, and stop using your intellect to block God more. And then it's going to take me to the third step where it's going to say, now you're going to actually be able to recognize what self-will is by knowing when you are right and others are wrong. You've just progressed from a savage state to an intellectual state to an act of faith, a state of no longer self-will running the life. So that's pretty good stuff right there. It's a great way to see how this all builds itself to a new character, which you cannot intellectualize. Right now we can connect some dots, but in application you cannot intellectualize. You either live it or you don't. If I live in this, depending on where I'm at, let's say that I'm looking at, the belligerent one, the one I won't believe, and I'm trying to get over that, I'm going to be looking at that state of character and what that state of character can get into. So each, depending on where you're at, is where you can grasp what might be treatable or exposable, so that you cannot change something you're not aware of, and you can't be free from anything you cannot see. All right? Anybody else on that?
I just got a quick question if I could.
Yeah, Scotty, go.
Scott, alcoholic. And I don't do a lot of reading because I don't have my glasses. But I'm getting better at understanding things metaphorically, and I get all this part about how I'm in self-sufficiency and how I'm, thinking I know it all here. The sentence that has got me thrown off a little bit is, and I get the part after it, but again, John Barleycorn has other ideas. I take John Barleycorn to reference alcohol or alcoholism.
Yeah, the intellect. Well, the intellect is saying the God of intellect has displaced the God of our fathers. Get it? So now it's telling me, so it says the God of intellect displaced the God of our fathers. I mean, the God of our fathers is the one we want, right? That's the God that we have faith and we perform with. Now it's been displaced, but then all of a sudden John Barleycorn says, let's put some drinking with that intellectual mind, and now we're going to have a way with you. And so now John Barleycorn had other ideas. Took your intellect and now screwed you up. Get it? Put a little booze in you, take your intellectual self-sufficiency, let's see where that'll get you now. And now it's going to have other ideas. That make sense? Yeah, now you got right. That's what booze do to any of us. It just makes a mess of everything. So now booze combined with me running intellectually self-sufficient just devours any idea that I don't need a God of my fathers. Howard's got the mic real quick.
All these ideas of self-sufficiency and, feeling that I'm better than, they still coexist in my own character. So they're still intact.
That's right. Completely built. Very good.
So, it's again that step 6 that I become aware of that, and now I can make the change in the moment that I'm in. And I still experience the belligerency, the intellectual stuff. But when I can catch myself and say, no, this is not the right way for me to experience life. There's a better way now, and it's through having God in my life and living by spiritual principles. But I would love to think that I'm never going to feel belligerent and self-sufficient anymore, but it's just right around the corner all the time.
Do you know that you're going to wake up tomorrow and everything's going to be hunky-dory when you wake up tomorrow?
Do I know that?
Yeah, you guaranteed tomorrow?
Am I guaranteed? No.
Okay, so all you have is a now anyway.
Yeah.
At any given moment, all you ever have is in this moment to not be intellectually self-sufficient, and in this moment to be guaranteed I don't have to go back to that energy or that character right now. Instead of, I wish I could say I'm never going to go back there, it's more about I don't have to go there right now, and this now can lead me to every other now. And it is almost saying the same thing, but keeping it as simple as you can by just recognizing if I do this now, then that means I have it. That makes sense? Did you have a question? Don't worry about it. You have a question or no? Okay. Do you want to say something? You have anything to say? You want to say something or no? Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
Is that what God gave us ability because we're not throwing more for the better to
That would be a humble statement, yes, absolutely. I like that as a very humble statement, yeah. Now, do you know why?
I did not promise the Lord.
Huh? No, sorry, Laurel. Okay, yeah, so that was a great example. Absolutely, humility is a quality that works for everybody. Any display of humility is going to benefit all those involved and even not involved. If you uplift one man, you uplift every man. If you hurt one woman, you've hurt every woman. So it's the same principle. We are one. It is until every human being on this planet figures that out, we're not going to be done with this deal. But once we figure that out, once the last person figures that out, we'll be off and running to the next adventure.
That's why I was getting you.
When are we going to be off and running to the next adventure? Okay, anybody else? All right, let's go to the next paragraph.
Someone has to sit back and read for a while.
Okay, we're gonna come to disgusted with religion and all its works.
What page?
No, wait a minute, we're on page, yeah, 30, there you go. Okay, yeah, we're going 30, first paragraph.
Another crowd at AAC. We were plumb disgusted with religion and all its works. The Bible, I said, was full of nonsense. I could cite a chapter and verse, and I couldn't see the beatitudes from the begotten. In spite its morality was impossibly good, and other extreme impossibly bad. But it was the morality of the religionists themselves that really got me down. I go over the hypocrisy, bigotry, and crushing self-righteousness that clung to so many believers, even in their Sunday best. How I love to shout the damaging fact that millions of the good men of religion are still killing one another off in the name of God. This all meant, of course, that I have substituted negative for positive thinking. After I came to AA, I had to recognize that this phrase had been an ego-feeding proposition. In belaboring the sins of some religious people, I could feel superior to them, to all of them. Moreover, I could avoid looking at some of my own shortcomings. Self-righteousness, the very thing that I had contemptuously condemned in others, was my own besettling evil. This phony form of respectability was my undoing, so far as faith was concerned. But finally driven to an AA, I learned better.
Step 2 is all about ego, so you really get the opportunity to recognize when I talk about ego, or one talks about ego, where would I find the steps outside of the Tebow papers? You would find it. Step 2 would be where you'd be looking at what happens when the ego takes over, what ego looks like. As this is saying, this has been an ego-feeding proposition, meaning that when I get into negative thinking versus positive thinking, it's feeding my ego, and it's also, you can see how intellectual self-sufficiency would come in. As Laura was talking about, when I got a little intellectual self-sufficient backed by a bad mood, all of a sudden I'm now being a negative thinker versus a positive thinker, and thus I can tell that self-will has taken over, the ego has come in, and God has been removed from that situation. So we're watching again a progressive building, and as you even read the paragraphs, you'll see, okay, there's an order form to all of this. The ones that you're looking at are the ones that have lost or rejected faith. That's the biggest hurdle. That's going to be your first character first. And then as they go on, they usually go in sequence. So you can build as you're reading, you can recognize the momentum that's happening here. So that's telling me that when I come and then I don't display humility and I'm just walking around in intellect, all of a sudden I become into a negative thinking versus a positive thinker. And the next thing you're going to find out is after I get in that mode, all of a sudden defiance comes out. So it's going to get worse. That's why as you read this particular step, the character gets worse and worse as he goes forward, as it's all building together because it's all accumulated, okay? So now it's allowed me to recognize when I get to that spot of thinking that, they're right, I'm wrong, or I'm disgusted with the Buddhists, the Hare Krishnas at the airport in their orange outfits, whatever it is you want to try and be self-righteous about. That's when you start to get into an idea of negative thinking versus positive thinking. Just like I know when I got here, I had a thing about Jesus freaks, and it's just like, man, it just drove me nuts. I just was so sensitive to that. Like, it bothered me because if you really wanted people to believe, you would shove that down, try and shove that down people's throat, because what you're doing is you're pushing away. So I would see it as an intellectually inappropriate way of trying to bring that to people, almost defying your whole purpose. You say this is your mission, but all you're doing is walk around and tell people, if you don't, you're going to go to hell. And people do not want to hear that today. So these kinds of things bother me. But what I realized is all I was looking at is that one guy that might have done that. Because every person that goes to church has never done that to me. Only once in a while do I find a cat like that. Most of them are pretty nice people, and most of them live a pretty good life. That's what I got to remember, is the bulk of it is a lot better than the minute part of it that's negative versus positive. Overall, religion has basis of it. Live a good life. Be good to your neighbor. Do unto your neighbors as you do unto yourself, as God would have you do. So in terms of that religion's got a pretty ideal way of living, saying be a good person. Don't just be a schmuck, as opposed to an intellectually self-sufficient life. Being intellectually self-sufficient means kill or be killed, get what you got to get while you can get it, man, and kick them while they're down. You know, that's that self-will, intellectually self-sufficient, and that savage state of mind, which is all produced by the ego. So again, I'm looking at this idea of it isn't very smart to be a negative thinking versus a positive thinker. It seems you're going to use your intellect, use it for good. Say, okay, I'm going to go right into intellectual self-sufficiency. I'm going to find some great stuff in this situation. Man, I don't know. God might be working with you then. Maybe it's a little combination of humility. I don't know. But that's going to be a lot more intelligent than walking around in life and just find negativity or ego to proclaim some form of self-righteousness or self-knowing that nobody's asking for anyway. Nobody wants to know, do you know this? Do you know that? Do you know all this stuff? Nobody really is asking that, but somehow you think, when we act that way, we think the world is asking that, so now we're going to show everybody how smart we are. When in reality, we obviously feel we're not very intelligent, and now we're trying to compensate for 2 left feet. You know what I mean? That's that double-sided coin of fear and ego, of Mark, you know, the double-edged sword of ego, which is really backed by fear. Okay? So, yeah. Yeah.
You know, never mind, I'll call you tomorrow.
Don't worry about it.
Because I like to think of a positive person, and so if I'm a positive person versus a negative person, do you think there's like an ego twist in that?
Positive versus a negative person?
You know,
I mean, what? Did I find that? Okay, go ahead.
yeah, like, I don't think I tear people down and try to build people up, like when I was with my family, or whether I'm at work, or
Well, now you got to go on a whole global scale. Now you can't look at individual situations.
okay.
So you have to say, when I'm in a bad place, do I tear people down? Do I find fault with people? Can I be negative? Can I be negative versus positive? You're trying to say when you get in your bad spot, usually you're more still stay optimistically positive, and you're kind of kind and jovial and loving everything.
Definitely go bad.
So you got to remember that. You got that. You're saying, I think I'm generally a kind person, but that isn't what it's about. It's not saying, are you over more or less? It's just saying, this is what happens when you, to let you recognize you've entered into a state of ego, a state of barbarism, a state of separating yourself from God when you're in negative thinking versus positive thinking. It's not about more or less. You know what I mean? You either are or you aren't, in other words. There's no gray area. I'm a little more on the positive side than the negative side. It isn't about that. It's either I'm in the state of positive thinking or I'm in the state of negative thinking. Okay. And it has to be black and white. There's no gray area. You can't be in the gray area, because if we get in the gray area, it messes us all up. I'm either being in a positive state or I'm in a negative state. I mean, when I'm with God, I'm in a positive state. When I return to self, I'll get into that negative fault-finding mind. Okay? So it's important to that. It's a good question. It's a good question. And it's good because I know it's me. I felt the same way. I'm a pretty nice guy. I'm overall pretty jovial. But let me tell you something. When I'm in the wrong space, I'm not a nice guy. I'm not the kind of guy you want to be around. Yeah, Dave. Go ahead.
Another thing I realized about myself, I'm a liar. And I thought I was, I'm a pretty nice guy, pretty honest guy. Yeah. You know?
And I'm a liar at the same time.
But I'm a liar.
Yeah, no, it's great. And that's what I had to realize, is that when I return to me, it isn't about whether I'm more or less anymore. It's not even a measurement. See, because if I'm not in recovery, then I become that character. And what this has helped me to recognize is when I form those positions, I see the one ugly rose versus the 11 beautiful roses. Now, you know what I'm talking about? That's when I've entered into negative thinking versus positive thinking.
Can I ask a question about that? Because when I was reading a little bit about it, 37, and
also remember one more thing as you go into this. This is a state of mind. As much as it's a state of being, you have to remember we can enter into the state of mind and get out of it. We can go to another state of mind. But this is talking about what state of mind we can enter into when we get into more of a prejudice. This is a prejudice state of mind. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that the question brought me back to 37, where we read, should my own image in the mirror be too often to contemplate? And usually is usually after the actions that I take in self-sufficiency and self-will, which are negative and derogatory. In other words, I'm beating myself up.
I know what you're saying, but it's not necessarily after. When you're in self-sufficiency, one good look in the mirror, you don't like what you see. When I'm with God, I look in the mirror, I don't see me. When I'm with me and I look in the mirror and I don't like what I see, I'm not with God in that moment.
But negative to positive thinking usually starts inside, even if I'm not aware of it. Isn't that where it's usually starting?
Well, yeah, it's thinking, negative thinking versus, where was it gonna think
About
of outside?
myself, is what I'm saying.
No, no, there's no pat answer. You're looking for one specific answer, and ain't gonna happen. It could have an unlimited ways of manifesting. You know what I'm saying? Does it make sense? It could be a general scope of things for you, but that is not gonna be an absolute. I would not put it as an absolute.
Okay.
Okay, somebody else? All right. Huh? Is it?
Yep.
Oh, doggone. Well, we got 5 minutes, so let's do a little, so want to share for 5 minutes, talk a little bit about what we talked about. Basically, what we're going to look at this week, we're going to look at those lost faith or rejected faith we already went through. So we're going to look at that intellectual self-sufficiency, negative thinking versus positive thinking, and now we're looking, that's basically where we're at. We got those 2 paragraphs. So we got intellectual self-sufficiency. Great things to look at this week is where it is that I'm floating above the rest of the room, that I think that my intellect can conquer others, that people are stupid. Have you ever, I know you guys have never had that thought, but I used to run around all the time and think how much smarter I was than the person talking, but I have no idea what's in their mind, only to find out they were Mozart on the piano that next time I talk to them, and then all of a sudden I'm not so smart anymore. Because they go, here, why don't you play? And I go, oh, I can't play like that. Well, so you can't see what's in somebody. You don't know if you're smarter than someone unless you got it all on the table. Unless they say, here's all my intelligence, now what do you got? And as you said, there's not enough time in the world to do that. So the reality of it is, as we've learned, and I've learned, I don't know what's going on inside somebody else until they tell me. And most of the time, even when people try and tell you, they want to withhold and not tell you everything anyway. So, but I certainly don't want to fall on the side of presuming what's inside somebody, especially on a negative level. If you're going to do it, you can only presume it on a positive level. They're thinking good thoughts about me right now. They want to hug me right now. They think I'm the best guy in the world. They think I'm a spectacular driver. I'm one of the best drivers they've ever seen. Does that ever go through your consciousness? How come the other stuff does? They're a terrible driver. They can't drive. That person's thinking negative thoughts about me. They're talking smack about me. How come all that goes on, but none of that? You know what? They're loving on me right now. They're looking really good at me right now. You know what? Things are really good right now. So again, I always say, if you're going to do that, make sure that whatever you put in there is only positive, no negative. But the reality of it is, that's where God comes in. You know what I mean? I don't know what's in somebody else. I don't know what's in their mind, and I don't want to presume, and I don't want to respond to what I presumed is in other people's mind. That's, again, another intellectual approach. Okay? So we got a couple minutes. Sharon, anything, questions, or talk a little bit more?
Yeah, okay. How about, stop with the mic.
No.
Hi.
It's not for you. It's not for you. It's for the people who buy the CDs.
Okay. How about when you feel inferior? And so instead of projecting like you know more than other people, how about when you feel inferior around somebody else?
There you go. It's very good. David says ego 123 in your book. I don't know. Mine, it is the second paragraph, but I think it's going to be the third potentially. No, maybe the second. In the years since.
In the what?
The years since.
Okay.
123 paragraph starts with in the years since.
Okay. In the years since, however, most of us have come to agree with those doctors. We have had a much keener look at ourselves and those about us. I have seen that, well, I'm not reading it in the first person, sorry.
It's okay, you just did. You said I have seen.
Yeah, I have had a much keener look at myself and those about me. I have seen that I was prodded by unreasonable fears or anxieties, which making life business of winning fame, money, and what I thought was leadership. So false pride became the reverse side of that ruinous coin marked fear.
So yeah, it's false pride.
Okay.
Is the other side of fear.
I simply had to be number one person to cover up my deep-lying inferiorities. In fitful successes, I boasted of greater feats to be done. In defeat, I was bitter.
So inferior is another word. It's a long word for fear, isn't it? Yeah. And fear means the other side of that coin of fear is inferior. The other side of ego is fear. So it's telling me I'm inferior when I'm in ego. I'm feeling inferior. That's why I'm in ego. That's why I'm trying to represent ego. So when I'm feeling inferior, it's because I got false pride going. I can recognize inferiority by a sense of false pride. I'm projecting false pride. I did this. You know what I did over here? There's a sense of false pride needing to be represented. So that I know I'm in fear or inferiority about where I'm at or who I am. I mean, whenever I have to win to get the deal done, whenever I have to get the better end of the stick, I'm feeling inferior. Now I have to prove myself to others. So it's a coin that's walking around in this life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but with me, it's like I shut down. Allow the other person to win or to like outshine, you know?
Yeah.
Protecting yourself.
It's the same thing on the same level. You're still exactly, as David's saying, you're still afraid. Therefore, you're backing out. Because what if I do go forward and I make a mistake? Is really the fear. It's not I go forward because I'm gonna be better than them. I might try and elect, but the reality is if I go forward and fail, then what will I look like? So I don't want to look bad, so I'm not gonna go forward. You go ahead and look bad if you want to look bad. Right? You know what I'm saying? So that's most reason why I would back off rather than someone going in. There's another reason why I'm doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. You can finish this paragraph. That's a good paragraph.
If I didn't have much of any worldly success, I became depressed and cowed. Then people said I was of the inferior type. But now I see myself as chip off the old same block. At heart, I had all been abnormally fearful.
We had all. It's a good one. At heart, we had all been abnormally fearful. I need to know I'm in a room full of abnormally fearful people. Not only am I in a room full of abnormally fearful people, I'm in a world full of abnormally fearful people. It doesn't just limit itself to this room. So if I can walk on this road going, what if I'm in a world full of abnormally fearful people? Can I have a little more discussion then? Can I see a little bit more, of the bigger picture then? Do I always have to react to everything if I start to realize, well, what if these people are just doing that in fear? It's sort of like that waiter that does a terrible job and you jump down their throat only to find out that their wife or husband is dying of cancer at home and they're 3 months away from doing that and you didn't know that, but you winged on them because they weren't doing the job right and you feel terrible because it's always what if. It's that what if for the right reasons, right? Yeah. What if they're just abnormally fearful? Then now I can see why they would behave that way. That's why they're acting loud. That's why they're being obnoxious. They're abnormally afraid. Desir was a guy, I don't know if you guys know, a lot of people know him, but he was a guy who used to come to me years ago. He's in Miami now, but big old dude, and loud as loud can be, but funny, and I mean, just had a great sense of humor. And man, he was ranked as a #1 world heavyweight world kickboxer. So he's a bad dude, right? I mean, he can do a lot of damage, but he was always obnoxious and loud. A lot of people didn't like that because they didn't understand it's the same thing as being shut down in the room, not saying a damn word. It's that sense of isolation, it's that fear of isolation that's expressing that. So when I know he's abnormally fearful, it doesn't bother me anymore, and I maybe can help him see it. Does that make sense? But if I get annoyed, then I'm not recognizing abnormally fearful. It's only become about me, and I don't like the noise right now. And so now, what did it become my world? So the better world is maybe this person's abnormally fearful. Maybe they're acting out of an abnormal fear right now. Then could I get over this? Then could I let that go? Yeah. And most of the time, what is it? I was afraid. As soon as you say that, like, all right, I didn't know you were afraid. I get it. Because we all do things when we're afraid, right?
The elephant in the room.
There you go, man. All right, so that's all the time we got for tonight. All right, good stuff. And we got any announcements you need to make? Anybody? Bueller? Bueller?